Hi, I'm Glenn,
And I'm Mark.
and welcome to another episode of Masonic Unity,
The Right Stuff.
Profiles in Masonic Leadership. And we are so lucky today to be joined by Most Worshipful and Illustrious Walter Wheeler, who is the Sovereign Grand Commander of the Northern Masonic Jurisdiction Scottish Rite, based out of Lexington, Massachusetts. Commander Wheeler, it is such an honor to have you here with us on Masonic Unity, The Right Stuff.
Well, the honor's all mine. Thanks for asking.
Thank you. So we're going to talk to you a little bit today about your experiences in Masonry, about your experiences in leadership, where you see the fraternity going in the future. But to start out with, tell us a little bit about your background in Masonry and how you got to where you are now.
Well, I started in DeMolay, and when I was 14 years old, my dad, who was a master mason, came home and he told me about this organization called DeMolay. And he said, I want you to join this organization. And I'm like, nah, I don't really want to do that. And I'd learned a long time ago if my dad wanted me to do something, it was just best to do it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But
yeah.
he did tell me, he said, if you do it and you don't like it, you don't have to keep going, but I want you to try it. So I said, okay. And I went to my first meeting and I just fell in love with it.
Wow.
And I just jumped in with both feet, and I was very active for many years in DeMolay. And so when I became 21, there was just absolutely no question in my mind I was going to become a Master Mason. And I joined my dad's lodge, and I already knew many of the guys there because I'd been hanging out in the Masonic Temple
Right.
since as long as I can remember.
Yep.
And but I do remember my dad saying, you know, they're going to come and investigate you,
Right.
and 3 guys are going to come to your house, and they're going to talk to you, and they'll decide whether or not you're fit to join the lodge, and they'll make a recommendation. I'm like, okay. And I already knew everybody, I thought.
Right.
So when the guys come to investigate me, I looked out the front walk, I see them walking up the front walk, and I said to my wife, oh no. And she said, what's the matter? I said, that guy was the vice principal of my school. If he remembers me, I'm never going to get in the lodge.
It's on your permanent record. Yeah.
So fortunately, he said I must not have been that bad because he didn't
Okay.
remember anything
Yeah.
specific. But I thought to myself afterwards, if I'd have known he was a member of my dad's lodge, I might have behaved myself.
Yeah.
There we go.
I did get into the lodge. I became an officer right away, served as worshipful master of the lodge in 1985. I was 28 years old at the time, so I was a very young worshipful master. My dad served as my chaplain.
Yep.
And because I thought, who better to advise me if I need any help?
Yeah.
And it was a tremendous experience. And from there, I joined the Scottish Rite because one of my DeMolay advisors
Right.
said to me I needed to belong to the Rite. My dad didn't belong to any of the appendant bodies.
Right.
And so, and actually, I should go back. When I was like 15 years old, I played Jacques DeMolay. And this same advisor said, someday you're going to
Right.
be Constance in the 32nd degree.
Right.
And I had no idea what he was talking about, but he was right.
Yep.
So
Right.
I did join the Scottish Rite, and I loved that as well.
Right.
And so I got my dad into the Scottish Rite. I said,
Oh,
Dad, you're going to love
serendipity.
Scottish Rite.
Yeah.
So he got me into Masonry, but I got him into the Scottish Rite. And from there, it just kept joining more and more appendant organizations.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've obviously bought into it.
That's
I love
great.
it.
That's
I
great.
drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, you drank the Kool-Aid.
Very good. Now, you mentioned a few moments ago that you fell in love with DeMolay as soon as you went there. What made you fall in love with it?
You know, I really enjoyed the ritual. I enjoyed the camaraderie.
Right.
And I remember a couple of guys in particular who, I was 14 at the time, and these guys were like 17 or 18, so they were really old.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they just took me under their wing, and, you know, they treated
Yeah.
you like royalty.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just appealed to me immediately. And I found out I was pretty good at doing ritual.
That's great.
And so that obviously opened many doors. If you're a good ritualist in our fraternity,
Of
you can
course,
get a lot
yeah,
of doors
yeah.
opened, and it went from there.
That's great. That's great. So when you were moving up the line, and when you were Master of your Lodge, and you were Grand Master of Michigan, you must have had mentors. So tell us a little bit about the mentors you had and what kind of an effect they had on you.
So Actually, when I was installed as Sovereign Grand Commander, I mentioned some of my Masonic mentors, and one of them was my DMLA advisor, George Collins, and George was the ritual advisor for my chapter, and he was also the secretary of the Valley of Grand Rapids,
Okay.
and a past commander-in-chief, and a past sovereign prince,
Right.
and just an all-around wonderful guy, and I loved George, and he just took me under his wing. For some reason, I don't know, he saw something in me
Right.
that I don't know if anybody else saw it, but he did. And it was at a point in my life where my dad and I weren't particularly close at that point in time, you know, when
Right.
you're a
Yeah.
teenager.
Yep.
But George could tell me something and I would do it. If my dad told me the exact same
Right.
thing, I would
Yeah.
probably push back.
Yeah.
I will say though, my dad did get smarter as he got older.
Right, of course, as they are.
But, you know,
Yeah.
at that point in my life, it was George Collins. And George was probably my first real adult Masonic mentor. And he just was a wonderful person. And I joined Scottish Rite, as I said, at his behest, and he died a month later. So I was so glad that I did it
Yeah.
when I did
Yeah,
it,
definitely.
so that he knew I was a Scottish Rite Mason. You know, in life and in the lodge, my dad was definitely one of my Masonic mentors.
Yeah.
My dad taught me so much about Freemasonry, and my dad was an outstanding ritualist, and so when I joined the lodge, he gave me the ritual book and said, "Here, learn this."
Yeah.
I had no idea it was optional.
Of course.
That's what you're supposed to do. Exactly. So he was definitely one of my Masonic mentors. And then when I became a Grand Lodge officer, there were several mentors. Don Boyer, who was a past Grand Master and a past Grand Secretary, was a tremendous mentor for me. Bob Conley, who was a past Grand Master, he was actually Grand Master when I was Grand Marshal. Taught me a lot. David Bedwell, who was also very active in the Scottish Rite. He was ahead of me in line,
Right.
but was also just a tremendous mentor. And so in the other Masonic bodies too that I've been involved with, I belong to pretty much everything, but
Yeah.
those that I've truly been
Right.
involved with, you always have somebody that takes you by the hand
Yeah,
and shows
yeah.
you the ropes
Yeah.
and introduces you to people, and
What was your first position in Grand Lodge?
Grand Marshal.
Grand Marshal? Okay.
Very good.
And,
Jumped right into it then.
I did. Now, Grand Marshal in Michigan's a little different than the Grand Marshal in New Jersey, but it's your basic responsibilities take care of the Grand Master.
Right, of
And,
course.
Yep.
and obviously to organize public events and
Right.
line people up.
Right.
Oh, yes.
But we don't do the memorization of all the titles like you guys do. we had notes, we had cheat
Okay.
sheets.
Yeah, it's like herding cats.
Yep. But that was a great experience. And the entire Grand Lodge experience was a great experience.
Yeah.
Going through the line, becoming Grand Master, and then I served an additional 3 years as Grand Treasurer.
Right, right. Very nice. Now, beyond Grand Lodge work, your next steps in Spring Council.
So I became very active in Scottish Rite once I joined. I went in first into the council line and served as Sovereign Prince, and then I did the consistory line and
Right.
served as Commander-in-Chief. And then I was in the Lodge of Perfection line when our deputy at the time asked to have dinner with my wife and I. My wife said, what do you think he wants? And to be quite honest, I thought he was going to ask me to be deputy's rep because our deputy's rep from my valley had just had a stroke.
Right.
And
Okay,
I thought,
yeah.
I just thought,
Yeah.
I think that's what he's
You
going to
never know,
ask.
yeah.
And he, was talking and finally said, well, you're probably wondering why I asked
Yeah.
you here. I said, yes. And he said, we'd like you to consider being an active member of the Supreme Council. I think that kind of threw me for a little
Yeah,
bit of
yeah,
a loop.
yeah,
That is not the
yeah.
question I
Right,
was
yeah.
expected to be
Right,
asked.
right.
And obviously I accepted his recommendation and was elected as an active member.
Wonderful.
And served as an active member for 7 years when our deputy at the time, David Bedwell, passed away very unexpectedly.
right.
And Commander McNaughton
Right.
asked me to take over as deputy from Michigan.
Yeah.
And then when Commander Glatley became commander, he asked me to serve as Grand Treasurer General
Right.
of the Supreme Council,
Right.
which I did. And then a year and a half, almost 2 years ago
Yeah.
now, I was elected commander,
That's wonderful.
which
That's
is
wonderful.
obviously a job I never thought I would have.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's been a great experience.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your views on leadership. Masonic leadership or just leadership in general. I mean, everybody has a different way of leading, a different style, different views.
Yep.
What are yours?
That's an interesting question. I don't know that I have a particular style. as an individual, I'm pretty laid back. I like to let people do their job,
Right.
and if they need some help, yeah, we'll
Yep.
give you some help.
Right,
Or, you know,
right.
I'm not a micromanager by any means, and I have confidence that the people that are supposed to be doing these jobs are going to
Right.
do them. So
Right.
I'm pretty laid back. It takes a lot to get me
Right.
upset. It happens,
Yeah.
but it's not easy. I think that, you know, leadership is so important to our fraternity, and we, as an organization, we've been struggling with leadership vacuums for a long time. And I think part of our issue, to be honest, was for many years, we picked the leaders of our organization because they were good ritualists,
Right.
Yep.
not because they were necessarily good leaders.
Yeah.
And trust me, I love the ritual. I've got
Right.
nothing against that. And that's how I kind of got discovered, so
Yeah.
I guess I can't say too much bad about that. But we need to pick leaders because they're leaders, and we need to pick ritualists because they're
The ritualists,
Let the
yeah,
good
right.
ritualists do the ritual, let the good leaders be the leaders. And that's
Yeah.
not saying somebody can't do
Yeah.
both.
Right.
Yeah.
But don't make them do something that they're not good at.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, I think there are so many opportunities, especially right now, for men to take charge and to be leaders in our
Yep.
fraternity. But I sometimes wonder if with the changes in society today and what's expected of especially young men with young
Right.
families,
Yeah,
today it wasn't
definitely.
what was expected of me when I was a young
Yes.
father.
Right.
I'm wondering if maybe we have to look at our expectations of these guys and
Okay.
take advantage of the things we can take advantage of, but maybe not expect them to do the same thing that we did in the 1920s.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Very strong. Very strong.
Now, one of the positions that you didn't mention was you were in charge of the Scottish Rite charity.
I was.
At a difficult time, especially for the people in New Jersey. Amazing. I mean, to gather that all together and to help people, I mean, that's part of our calling.
Yep.
And all, and just, I really want to just make sure that that was pointed out, was that you were a key figure in a lot of that.
And,
And
excuse me, I was director of charities, and prior to that, I had actually served 11 years as director of charities for the Michigan Masonic Charitable Foundation.
okay.
And they had asked me to take over the Scottish Rite charities a couple of times, and I turned them down because I was completely happy
Right.
in the Grand Lodge of Michigan and doing what I was doing there. And finally, I think it might have been the third or fourth time that they asked, I finally said, okay. And I said okay, in part because I just loved what Scottish Rite was trying to do for the fraternity.
Right.
With not just a man of Mason and then later
Yeah.
be a Freemason. And I thought Scottish Rite is the best hope for Freemasonry. And I still believe that to this day. It's the best hope for the future of Freemasonry. And I wanted to have at least a small part
Yeah.
in that.
Yeah.
But our charities are great. And, you know, I talk all the time about, especially the Almoners Fund, which holds a place near and dear to my heart. I've seen firsthand what that fund has done and how it's changed lives. And I tell people all the time, I wish every one of our members had the opportunity to go present one of those Almoners checks to somebody that truly needs it. Because we're not only changing their lives, but if you're part of that, it's going to change your life as well.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. That's wonderful. Now, when we first met, you were involved in the museum system out in Michigan. So that has a special place in our heart. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience there?
So as director of the Scottish, or not the Scottish, right, as director of charities in Michigan, the museum and library was one of the things that I was in charge of.
Right.
And at that particular time, when they had the meeting out here in Trenton,
Right.
we didn't have a museum director.
Okay.
But we wanted to be a part of that
Right,
organization
okay, yeah.
and see what it was about. So I attended on behalf of our foundation. And then, as you know, later we hired Dirk Hughes
Yep.
to be our museum and
Right.
library director, who's now in line to be
Yep,
the president of that
exactly.
organization. But I've always had a special place in my heart for Masonic history. I just love history
Yeah,
in general, but
yeah.
Masonic history, I remember going to our museum and library, which is a similar size to yours.
Yep.
And I'd go there and I'd expect to be there for like 30 minutes, and 4 hours later I'd be leaving because I found this to look at or I found
There's
this
a
to
lot
read.
of
and-
rabbit holes.
and there absolutely are, but I used to love to do
That's
that.
great. That's great. Now, we've talked about where you were, we've talked about where you are. Where do you see the future for the craft, for Scottish Rite, for yourself?
You know, I have mixed thoughts. I'm a numbers junkie, and so I look at numbers all the time. I did accounting for 25 years, so I look at the numbers, and it gets a little depressing sometimes when you look at the the rate of decline, and you look at the age of our membership, and you look at how many guys we lose out the back door every year, which the Grand Master mentioned earlier today. And when you look at just that, it's a little depressing. On the other side of the coin, I see the things that the Scottish Rite and some of our Grand Lodges are starting to step up to try to make a difference, to try to promote Freemasonry. And I'm optimistic that we can change the trajectory of that ship.
Okay.
It's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of effort. But I believe that men today are looking for an organization like Freemasonry, but they don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we're not as good at telling our story as we need to be. We need to be much better at telling our story.
We need to be better
But I think we
storytellers.
have a viable organization. I think we have what men are looking for. And I think if we're up to the task, the future is bright.
Yeah.
But it's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in effect, some of the numbers may be going down, but also what I'm seeing is the involvement of those members has been increasing.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities,
Yeah.
so many different programs that are out there that where they may not have been involved besides maybe a monthly meeting or something. There's Rites on the Road, there's Thursday Night Rite,
Oh, yeah.
Pathfinder,
Yeah.
HGA.
Well, and if you're just having a monthly meeting, what's exciting about going to a lodge?
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's not exciting.
Right.
You know, I didn't join a lodge because I wanted to hear minutes read
Right.
once a month and I wanted to vote on paying the bills.
Yep.
You join for the camaraderie and the fellowship. So you need to be doing activities and
Stuff like
fun
that.
things.
Family fun
and
things.
you know, for some guys, the ritual is the thing that they like.
Right.
Other guys, it's not ritual, it's the social aspect.
Yeah.
And so we need to be doing all of those
Yeah.
things jointly. And we need to be working together as a fraternity. I mentioned at the Conference of Grand Masters that think of the impact we could have as an organization if, one, we were all rowing in the same direction.
Yep.
Right.
We were all in the same boat.
Yep.
Rowing in the, not that we're always going to agree on everything, but we're going in the same direction. And we pooled our resources. Can you imagine the impact we could have? We could change this trajectory.
Yeah.
But we have to be rowing in the same direction.
We
And
can change the
that's been a
world.
challenge.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I love that.
Yeah.
We could.
Change the
Yeah.
world
We
with
could.
that.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. That's great words. We're so glad you were able to join us here today. Is there anything that you can speak to our viewers about from your thoughts, from inside? Anything you want to pass on?
Excuse me. I guess just we belong to a great organization. I encourage you to be involved in whatever manner you can. You know, I understand a lot of guys can't be gone 6 nights a week like I was for
Yeah,
much of my life.
yeah.
My wife is a saint, trust me. But do what you can to promote the fraternity and get involved in whatever aspect of Freemasonry you enjoy. You know, I've heard over the years somebody saying, well, you know, they're not doing the Blue Lodge or they're active in the Shrine or this, and I don't care.
Right.
Find your niche in our
Exactly.
fraternity and
Exactly.
be active
Yeah.
in that niche and do what you enjoy doing.
And there's so many options for
Oh,
you
there
to
are.
find that.
Absolutely.
Whether it be stage crew at the Valley, be it in whatever body.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about being married to a saint.
Yep.
What was it like balancing all that? How would you recommend to a young guy who wants to join, who's getting hit from 10 different organizations? You got to join the Shrine, York Rite, Scottish Rite. How? And I think that's the conflict
Yep. Well,
that a lot of guys face.
And it is, and you know, I'll use one of my own sons as an example. He's my middle son is not a Mason. I would love for him to be one, but he's like, Dad, I can't do what you do. And I keep saying, don't use me as the example.
I said the same thing to my son.
I'm not a good
Same
example.
thing.
Yeah.
But it is challenging, and my wife was a saint. Now, on the other hand, my wife came from a Masonic family.
Okay.
She was in Job's Daughters. I was in D. Malay. That's how we met. We
Yeah,
met at a D.
really?
Malay
That's wonderful.
installation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, we started going together when we were 15 years old, and we've been together ever since. And So she understood that this was just one of the loves of my life.
Yeah.
Right.
The
It wasn't
Masonic
just a hobby
fraternity.
or
Yeah,
a club
yeah.
you
Yep.
belonged to.
And she also recognized, I think, that I wasn't out carousing, I wasn't out
Yeah.
doing things that are,
Sneaking
detrimental.
in.
We were doing things that were, in many cases, important, or helping other people, or
Right.
doing charitable work, and she recognized that. Now, like I said, I'm very lucky that she came from a background
Right.
where she understood that from the very beginning.
Yep.
But I do get, it's way tougher for young men today. When I look at what my boys do with their kids, as compared to what I did with my kids,
Yeah.
as compared to what my dad did with
you,
me.
yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
And so the demands on a man's time are a lot different. And,
Right.
and you do have to set priorities, but I think if you make Masonry a priority, you can find a place for it in your life.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not gonna be 6 nights a week,
Right.
but you can find a place for it in your life.
Yeah.
Good.
That's wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. What do we say?
Please like us down below. Remember to subscribe. And thank you for joining us on the second floor.
Thanks, and take care.
See you later.
See you soon.